Hey guys, welcome to Dargon Gaming Squad. Today is going to be our first episode of Noob GM. So what is going on here is, as you know, I recently, well, if you've been watching, you may know that I have been working with some other GMs, trying to learn new systems, and I am definitely really into that. And recently, I played in a game for the first time with Sam from Chalice and Chains, and that was a call to adventure session. And what the call to adventure is it's something going around Absolute Tabletop, that is, which is a Facebook group, and some guys at absolutetabletop.com that host it. They are a publishing company, and the point of the call to adventure is to introduce new players to the hobby, people who maybe are just new to playing the game online, and to introduce systems to people, as well as to get people out of their comfort zone, out of their regular gaming groups, and introducing them to new people in our Absolute Tabletop community. So it's got a lot of, really great elements going on, and I think it's been a pretty fun thing. And for me, I had a really great time with Sam in the Edge of the Empire game. And the thing about that one was I've never played with Sam. I hadn't played with him as a player in anything. I had not played with him running a game, and I also had never played Edge of the Empire. So I hit that call to adventure on 3 things. Following that experience, Sam actually sent out the call to adventure to me, encouraging me to run something for the Absolute Tabletop group. This is a really great community. Everybody is really supportive and kind and helpful. And if there's any place that you're going to jump in and give it a go, it's a good place to do it. Or at least that's what he was encouraging me. And so I decided to run with it. And so the thing is, I have run a couple sessions before. I just have never run for people the caliber of this group. I didn't particularly feel that I was good at running, and it's not my preference. I definitely prefer to play. But so far, all I've done is run for people I either know really well, or I have run for people who are brand new to the hobby, and mostly those have been teenagers, which is great. It's been so much fun. I worked with some Girl Scouts, and I also kind of introduced the neighbor kids who had other friends who were involved in the hobby, who then picked up from there and really showed them how awesome it could be. And, just done a couple things like that. And it's all been people that I knew, didn't really know what to expect. And so therefore, they couldn't really be disappointed, and they all had a great time. So it wasn't bad. It just wasn't my strong suit, and you're always your own worst critic. So anyway, I thought that I'm just about ready to post the interest post for this. I have decided to do a half shot. I came up with the term half shot. Sam and Jeff Doty gave me some good ideas about maybe not feeling like I had to do a full-blown one-shot, an entire completely realized adventure, but maybe just to start out with maybe a scenario and like a situational thing, and then maybe a combat. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I have a lot of the nuts and bolts put together, but I need to figure out a few things, and I was hoping that that I could get some help from folks. So I have set this up as a hangout. The link is posted in the Absolute Tabletop group if anybody is interested in joining in. I just I didn't know exactly how to set up live any other way to have like the chat window running. So this is how I'm doing it. And so if anybody wants to join in, do that. And I'm just gonna go ahead. Hopefully Nate will be able to join me. I just saw a message from him saying he's not home from work yet. So he's had some scheduling things lately and we've had a really tough time connecting. So I decided I'm not going to worry about any spoilers. So there's a chance that somebody who joins in today or happens to watch might learn something, but I don't think anything's going to be all that complicated or all that special or amazing. I'm not really worried about it. And I figured this way I can learn a lot more on the way to doing this. So, so here's what I know so far. I have been actually for a while working on a campaign idea that I had after watching something on PBS that was just really interesting to me about Italian history. And I saw a location that kind of inspired me and made me want to come up with something. And so I have been building on that and kind of slowly but surely putting the pieces together. Eventually, Nate is actually one of the DMs who has asked me to plan on giving him a break. And then my home group TM has asked the same. So at some point, I want to run an adventure, a full-on campaign in this setting. And so I've decided I'm going to use some elements from that campaign in this scenario, and I think it's kind of perfect. It's going to be a perfect fit. And Nate and the rest of, well, not the rest of our group, but some of the people in our group, there's been some changes. Nate has already played in that setting a little bit, and some of the seeds have already been planted. So it'll be kind of a great way to kind of keep building on that, and it'll almost be, I kind of saw it as almost a prologue to what's going to be happening. So one of the things I need to figure out is what level the players should start at. And I was really hoping that there'd be somebody here at this point to kind of help me with that. But I have to say that I've kind of almost already made up my mind anyway that it's going to be first level. So unless somebody gives me guidance as to why that would be less than a favorable idea, it just seems to me like having less complicated characters for me as the GM would be easier. And if they are new players, I personally think that I kind of feel like I missed out a little when it came to getting to know 5th edition D&D, which, by the way, this is going to be a 5th edition D&D game. I realized I didn't say that. So I kind of feel like I missed the boat a little bit because every time I jumped in and played, I was playing, 3rd level or 5th level or kind of anything but starting at the beginning. And I'm already at that point, I was still a pretty novice player anyway. I'd only been playing 2nd edition D&D with my home group for a very short time, and I hadn't really been exposed yet to the kind of play that I've seen in the online community, like with Absolute Tabletop and some of the other, RPG Brigade and some of these other groups. So I kind of feel like it's easier as a beginner to start at the beginning and be able to build on your characters and kind of understand where you're going. With a one-shot, and this being a half-shot, it's probably going to be very difficult for folks to really tune in and get a sense of their character anyway. So I don't know how much difference it's going to make, but this will be almost more of a play test than anything else. So I kind of feel like first level is probably the best starting point. And with any luck, maybe we'll get some people who really are brand new players who maybe then can carry on and take those characters into another one shot that somebody else runs and, build on that and learn from that. So that's where I'm starting. I'm going to start with first level. I have already specified I've already kind of started writing up what's going to go on the interest post. And one of the things I already decided is it's going to be standard races from the player handbook. I don't want to have to source a lot of things. There's already enough that's kind of overwhelms me, that I want to keep it as simple as possible. And their equipment and gold is going to be just as stated in the handbook as well. So that should make it pretty simple. So what I thought I'd do is, so I've come up with a place. There's a place in my it's not really a full-blown world, it's more of a continent, but there's a place in one of the kingdoms that I know that eventually when I run the campaign that the players are going to go to. And this is going to be all taking place at this one inn, and it's called, I said called the River's Edge Inn, and it is indeed on a river. I guess I could have maybe pulled up my map and kind of showed you where I'm thinking it'll be, but it doesn't really matter for a half shot. So I'm not too concerned about that either, but I do kind of already have a spot in mind that I think it's going to be. And I know that at probably pretty early on in the campaign, the group is going to end up going there. So it should provide a basis if they happen to watch this half shot, and that it should provide something that would be recognizable for them. Even if they don't, it'll provide a little bit of backstory as to what's happened at this location. And I thought I would start out right in the action. I've heard that advice so many times that for one-shots that you don't want to start with everybody meeting in the inn, you want to start with the inn blowing up. Well, I'm not going to literally start with the inn blowing up, but I'm not going to be far off the mark. So a question, some of the questions I have that I'm hoping people can help me with. So if nobody ends up jumping in on this hangout, that's fine. Maybe if you tune in, you can give me some comments below. It's still have a couple weeks before I'm going to be playing this. So my first question is, actually, we'll go back to the original thing that I was mentioning, is that how do you decide what level you're going to start your players at if you're running a one-shot? How do you determine that? How do you decide? Do you build an encounter, a combat or a situation first and then decide what level would be best suited to it? Or do you pick a level and then build everything around that? In this case, that's what I'm going to do, since again, I already decided it's going to be first level. But my second question then is, if you're starting in the action, how do you do that? So what I already know I'm going to do is ask that the players kind of know where they're at the inn and how long they've been at the inn as of the wee hours of the morning. So the idea is, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., something like that, the middle of the night when most people should be fast asleep, is when the incident's going to start. And I'm going to open with the incident, and hopefully the players will end up together through what's happening, through getting through this first scenario. So I may be dealing with a lot of moving parts in the opening scene. I hope I'm not shooting myself in the foot with that, but I think the way we started Edge of the Empire the other night, for anybody who didn't watch, we started with a crazy chase scene, and we were literally in the thick of it, and it was really cool because we were just jumping right into the action. This won't be quite that much action, but it'll quickly become that active. So I've heard a lot of things about maybe using timers. So I'm wondering, do you use a timer? Do you use, how do you create that kind of tension? And so the scenario is going to be that they are hopefully, they're sleeping or they're hanging out in the inn somewhere when they hear and they hear some sounds. Those who are perceptive enough will hear arrows hitting the building, and the building will be catching on fire. So that brings me to the first question, is how do you deal with a situation like that? First of all, if they're sleeping, how do you adjust the perception checks. I assume that some sort of a perception roll according to where they are and what they're doing. It seems like if anybody's awake, they would obviously maybe get to roll at an advantage or something for being awake. I'm curious, is that the way you would go? I'm also curious, again, what would you do as far as people sleeping? Would you have them roll at a disadvantage? Would you have them roll just with a penalty? Or does anybody do penalties anymore? I know in second edition, sometimes our GM will say that we're rolling at a minus, 5, minus 6, minus 3, whatever. As opposed to, we don't do advantage and disadvantage typically. So has that been replaced? I haven't read enough of the rules of the Dungeon Master's Guide to know this. But also, how would you deal with that, and how would you ensure that you don't have, I don't want anybody's game to be ruined because the experience to be ruined because right off the bat they die. So how do you deal with the situation? And it's one of the reasons why I don't want to start with the building literally on fire and they're waking up because of the fire. I'd like to have them have that chance to hear the arrows hit the building or Molotov cocktails or whatever that's going to be, but to have that have some commotion that helps them with that. I also very much would like there to be a chance for this building to maybe not burn to the ground, to maybe, for the fire to maybe be put out. And, either way, it's going to create an interesting story for later on. But I would like that opportunity to be there. I'd like there to be a chance for them to be heroic, even with this opening scene. So I'd like thoughts on that. And then the other thing is I'm going to do a combat. And I already, again, have decided I'm not going to do any monsters. I already know there's going to be, there's some cult activity. I already have kind of a hook or some clues for that. I already have some of that in mind. So in terms of, I have worked with how to challenge ratings and all that. But I'd like to know if there's other approaches and how would you set that up and what would you do? So my thought is that we'd have some, just basic thugs or bandits or, kind of lower level guys, but maybe a couple kind of major cult people too who have an appearance at some point. And I also would like the players to have a chance to feel heroic. I don't want to make this so difficult that if they're beginner players, that they don't get to have that first moments of feeling like, oh, this is so cool. We just killed some bad guys or whatever it is that they get to have an exciting kind of heroic moment. So I am wondering, what if I end up with a bunch of experienced players who get in my game because they've never played with me. I've never run a game for the group. So folks have an opportunity to play in this session if they've just never played with me. And that's great. And it's somewhat what I'm, to some degree, I'm kind of hoping to get at least one or two experienced players, because they will be there to kind of help us all. They may end up coaching me a little bit. Hopefully I'll be together enough not to have to require too much of that. But I am also hoping that they will, be there kind of to help the newer players along, and to kind of show them a role-playing style and provide a really comfortable space for new players to feel free to explore. If they want to do something with their voice, or they want to do something with their mannerisms, or they really want to just be super into the role-playing in some manner, do a lot of, the dialogue, that sort of thing. I want them to feel safe and comfortable doing that. And those are things that are not my strongest suits. And things that I'm really working on trying to be better at. So would you scale it differently? Would you throw a couple tougher things in. Would you do that on the fly? If you have, you know, if you have one of the, you know, Matt Click or, you know, Michael Barker, Tim Kearney, any of those guys, you know, the Provokers or any of the AbTab guys, or, you know, Drake Warren or any of these people who play all the time, if you have somebody like that who's playing and you know that they're more experienced, would you on the fly kind of adjust the, you know, hit points of the combat, or, you know, what would you do, or would you, or does it matter? So I guess since Nate hasn't been able to join me yet, I'm going to go ahead and kind of look at maybe the stats for some bandits and things and see, you know, what I think might work. Actually, what I should do even before I do that is look at the challenge rating stuff. So my idea is to have 2 to 4 players. Hopefully we'll have at least 3, but not more than 4. I wouldn't mind having 5. I guess if there's somebody who really, really wants to play that I think, you know, for whatever reason, I feel convinced that they, you know, that I feel comfortable with having a 5th, I may go ahead and allow a 5th, but my idea is to kind of keep it small and keep it simple and be able to keep it moving. So I know that you, so I've got my, I've got my Dungeon Master's Guide here. And I know that there's a whole challenge rating section, and I've already forgotten what page it's on. About, you know, like looking at the level and the threshold. Here we go. The threshold of characters by level. So if we have a 1st level character and, oh, that's the XP thresholds. I'm looking at the wrong thing, I think. It's been a while since I did this last, and I'm feeling very rusty on it, in case you can't tell. Hopefully I'll get a chance to edit this a little bit later and not have it ramble on quite so much. But so lower levels, so we need to be careful not to outdo them too much, make it too difficult for them. So determine XP thresholds. Okay, yeah. So if we have 1st level characters and we wanted to make it easy, the XP threshold would be 25. And I think what that means is that anything they combat, that the challenge rating would be something that would not garner them more than 25 points of XP, which is probably, I want to say it's like a quarter. Yeah, so it's probably a quarter challenge rating, right? Oh no, a quarter is 50 XP, so we want pretty simple characters. So we have that, but I know there's more to it than that, because so you determine the experience thresholds for each character in the party. So if we have 4 characters and they're all 1st level, then the XP threshold's going to be 100, correct? So, and that's for easy. And so the question is, how easy do you make it? And again, I'm thinking easy in this case because of the potential for brand new players, and we want them to have their very first session to be something that really makes them feel powerful, their characters feel powerful and badass, and fires them up to play the next session. That's my opinion. I do like as things get more difficult, or as you get more experience as a player, it's great to have those scenarios where you really feel like you're on the edge and like, no way are we going to win this battle, because then when you do, it even feels more epic. But I know, like with the session that Nate's been running for us, the campaign he's been running, we've hit a point where I feel like all the time, like everything's just such an uphill battle to just survive. And it's great when we finally win, but lately I've been feeling like, wow, it'd be nice to just really feel like badasses again. Like it's been a while since we've been able to kind of easily solve anything, and I don't want that all the time by any means, but once in a while it's nice to have that confidence boost to your characters and your party. That's just my opinion. But anyway, so that's what I'm thinking. So it says XP character thresholds for character table below has four XP thresholds. So yeah, which I've already looked at. And then for each category, add up the character's thresholds. So that, again, like I said, would be 100. Oh, I see. They're suggesting that you do it for each encounter difficulty, which I guess makes sense, because then if you do need to change, you'll be set. So it would be easy would be 100 XP. Medium is 50, so that's going to be 200. Hard is 75. So that's going to be 300 XP. And deadly would be 100, which would be 400 XP. So that math wasn't too hard, which is great. So let's see. You'll end up with 4 totals, 1 for each category. So I did that. And then total the monster's XP. Every monster has a value in its stat block. Oh, I think this is not the right section. I think this is about awarding XP. And then there's multipliers. Okay. I don't know who the monsters are yet, so it's hard to do that part until I know. I guess I'm okay. All right. So I already know. So I guess wondering on the potential for fire, like how I factor that in. I'm sure I'll figure it out, but okay. And there's not thugs or bandits in the player handbook, and I don't believe that's in the Dungeon Master's Guide either. So yeah, I think I actually need my monster manual, which is right here. So we've got the monster manual. So that's this book, for anybody who hasn't looked at that. So non-player characters. Let's see, keep going. When we get into actual critters, miscellaneous creatures. Oh yeah. This is being the monster manual. I feel like I'm definitely looking in the wrong spot. I feel like I looked in the back of one of the books before to find what I wanted. But I think being the monster manual, I'm not looking in the right place at all now. This is, oh, here it is. Yeah, it is in the back. I thought it was in the back, but all right. So if you go to page, you know what? I don't have my reading glasses on. I need those. 342, there's Appendix B that is non-player characters. And this is where you get into the humanoid kind of, or the human and or, you know, non-beast kind of things. So there are several things in here. We have acolytes, assassins, bandits. Bandit is probably one of the things I'm going to want, and I'm thinking cultist and or cult fanatic. So what I was thinking is, I guess I'm kind of thinking on the lines of, you know, you have maybe initiates, people who think, oh, I'd be, you know, they think they want to join this cult. They've heard about this cool new thing and they want to go join this group. And of course, they wouldn't probably call it a cult, but they've heard about this group. They've fallen in with some people in this group and they think they're cool and they want to join in with them, and maybe don't get entirely what these groups are about. And so I kind of am envisioning a situation where you get these people, you know, that are on the fringe, that aren't really representative of what the group is about, and they're kind of, you know, coming into it, you know, more from a standpoint of thinking it's something other than what it really is. And I'm thinking that maybe we're going to have so I'm thinking that maybe we have some folks who are these enthusiastic people who just want to fit in and join in with this group, and maybe they are thugs already. You know, they're your punk kids who have fallen in with the wrong crowd and are misguided and thinking that they are, you know, that this is a cool thing and this is going to be the place for them to be, but maybe don't really understand what they're doing and are just, you know, maybe a little short on conscience, excuse me, is what I mean. And so I'm kind of thinking that maybe we have some of those guys, and then maybe a few actual cult members as well. And the idea behind that is I'm thinking that really what this thing with retaliating against this inn or attacking this inn is not really the way that these people operate normally, but we have these fringe guys who think, oh, this will, you know, we'll do this, and then they'll think we're cool and they'll definitely let us in, you know. So that's kind of my thinking is, you know, pulling in those kind of fringe people who maybe do things that wouldn't really be sanctioned by the group that they're trying to be a part of, and maybe are even abandoned by them. So, you know, so I'm thinking those are maybe just average bandits, or I know there's an actual thug in here too. So we've got the thug, which has a challenge rating of 1/2. They're 100 XP, and they have an armor class of 11. They do have pack tactics as one of their things. They can do a multi-attack. They use melee weapons, and their attack is 1d6 plus 2. So that might be something. And then going back, I want to look at the bandit and kind of compare. So if we look at the bandit, and I'm not going to look at the bandit captain because I think we're going to have more of a cult kind of person than a bandit captain. So we have bandits are at a challenge rating of 1/8, so 25 XP. That's kind of perfect for my vision. And so if we're building an encounter for I hope I understand this correctly. So it seems to me if you're aiming for 100 XP encounter, then you might have, you know, 3 or 4 bandits who are in this, you know, 25 XP range, and then you might have a couple other people that are harder. And I'm kind of thinking, I know that another common thing is to have one monster or opponent per player, and then maybe some additional ones. And that's kind of what I'm thinking. So maybe what I would have is 4 bandits or more, depending on how many. I'll have, you know, like 1 bandit per player, and then have, you know, maybe some cultist and a cult fanatic. I need to read those too. But so that's what I'm thinking. So for a 400 XP encounter, I'm going to want the bandits. I'm going to want probably 3 to 5 of them, I guess, would be the thing, because I'll probably not have less than 3 players. I would run with 2 if that's all I end up with, because it doesn't really matter if it doesn't go great, or if I only end up with a couple people. I'm willing to run. I probably won't try to run with just 1. I don't think that my experience level, it's just not there. I don't feel like that's something I could make work. I wouldn't know how to adjust, but I think I could probably manage with just 2, but I'm going to try to shoot for having at least 3. So 3 to 5, I think, of those. And these guys their armor class is 12. They wear leather armor. They don't really have anything special in the way of like special talents or anything. They are medium-sized, and these guys aren't particularly bright. Their intelligence and wisdom scores are fairly low. Their strength isn't terribly high either, all at +0, and their charisma too. So yeah, these guys are kind of perfect. They carry, now here's something. So it says action, scimitar or light crossbow. And I guess, again, one of my noob GM questions is, do they carry both, or do they carry one or the other? You know, unlike character creation, when you sit down and you know that you get to choose X number of weapons, you know, according to your proficiencies, this just says what their actions are. I assume that means they have both, but if anybody has any insight into that, let me know. So, so later I will do stat blocks for myself, but right now I'm just trying to figure out what I need to include in the encounter. So then we have cultist and cult fanatic. So the cultists, they're both medium humanoids as well. The cultist has an armor class of 12. Oh, and by the way, the hit points of the bandits are fairly low. The cultist is actually a little bit lower. They are also 1/8 challenge rating, so they're also only 25 XP. Same. Their stats are actually almost the same too. Almost everything's quite low on them except for their dexterity, and even that's low. Let's see, on the bandits, their constitution and their dex are the same, and on the cultist, the dex is, everything else is +0 except for dex, which is +1. So I don't know what the advantages or disadvantages are there. Hit point wise, they're going to be a little easier to take out, and they do have some skills though, and I think that's probably the main thing. So these guys have deception and religion skills, and they have something called dark devotion. The cultist has advantage on saving throws against being charmed or frightened. And then they carry a scimitar, and it says cultists swear allegiance to dark powers such as elemental princes, demon lords or arch devils. Most conceal their loyalties to avoid being ostracized, imprisoned, or executed, etc., etc. Unlike evil acolytes, cultists often show signs of insanity in their beliefs and practices. And then we have cult fanatic, which actually has a little bit higher armor class. So the cultist has an armor class of 12. The cult fanatic has an armor class of 13. Their hit points are quite a bit higher. Big jump. And that's maybe, we'll see what the description says as I read through this. But this may be, I may actually have a smattering of all three. So have some folks that they can take out, have some folks that they may end up injuring and or taking out, but maybe have a big enough group that maybe, you know, I guess my ultimate idea is that the main cult people may have been with them earlier in the evening, leading up to whatever it was that caused these guys to be upset with this which is not going to be part of the session, but it will be the backstory to the session, right? And there may be some things I throw in for the players, but my idea is that the cultists themselves will get away, and because they have to be there for the campaign later. So again, my thinking that being that, oh, they see that these guys are actually not so bright and they're not doing anything to further the beliefs of the cult or operating in a way that the cult wants. And it's like, we don't even want to initiate these guys, forget it, and leave them to deal with the consequences of their actions. Maybe even leaving before any major, you know, maybe as the combat starts, maybe they just take off right then. We'll see. So again, your thoughts would be great here. So anyway, cult fanatic, we're dealing with a little bit more in the way of dex and con, and wisdom and charisma. So now we have some people with charisma, which makes sense, because if you're going to influence people to be in a cult and you're going to, you know, be involved in those activities, you're not going to get people in if you don't have any charisma or smarts. So again, we have the dark devotion. They have advantage on saving throws against being charmed or frightened. These guys also have spellcasting. The fanatic is a 4th level spellcaster. Its spellcasting ability is wisdom. And the fanatic has some a cantrip and 3 cantrips and a 1st level spell as well as a 2nd level spell. Still not right. Sorry. 3 cantrips, 3 1st level spells, and 2 2nd level spells. And for a total of and a total of 7 spell slots, 3 at 2nd level and 4 at 1st. So this guy could really be troublesome and deadly to the party, and that's okay. I'm not going to pull all the punches, but these guys will probably be exiting anyway, so it probably won't be a big deal. Anyway, the fanatic also has multi-attack. So they can make 2 melee attacks, and they have daggers. And it says that they are often part of a cult's leadership, using their charisma and dogma to influence and prey on those of weak will. Most are interested in personal power above all else. So that's definitely good. Their challenge rating, by the way, is 2 for 450 XP. So they are definitely kind of out of the league of the 1st level players. And so they have the potential to cause a deadly encounter. There's also good reason for the party to either, you know, run from the encounter, or good reason to, but I think that this is going to be above them, hopefully. So anyway, as far as above the interest of the cult, so I think we will have some cultists as well. The cultist, again, was the same challenge rating as the bandit. So I may end up with I don't know yet, but a mix of those. So again, we can have up to 3 to 5 of either or. And so maybe what I'll have is like maybe 3 of the bandits, and maybe I'll have 5 cultists plus a cult fanatic, maybe. I feel like there needs to be a fanatic, somebody more in charge needs to be around to kind of be the voice of reason to pull the cultists away too. And or yeah, just to make a decision. And I feel like maybe they would have been, I don't know. I think basis wise, I feel like there's a lot of good reasons why all those will work. So right now, I'm just gonna plan on maybe one of those. I may end up with 2 just because thinking of situations where you might be thinking about joining something, there might be a couple people in charge there that you're interacting with that are presenting what's going on. So if you think about, maybe you're going to join an organization, you go to, I'm a Girl Scout from way back. So you take your daughter to one of those informational nights, and there's usually a leader and the co-leader or somebody, from the organization on a bigger level. And so you have other people. There's usually not just one person there. And so maybe I might have 2, just on the basis that maybe they're evaluating these people together as potential initiates. So I like that idea. Whether or not they're both there or either one of them even are there later when they exit the burning inn, hopefully exit the burning inn and still alive. Whether they're there at that point or not, we'll see. And I'd love thoughts on that, on how to kind of flesh that out. You've kind of heard where I'm coming from. Where would you go with it if it were you? So I've got all that. Now I feel like I have to go back to the Dungeon Master's Guide. And you know what? I'm just going to get up for a second and I'm going to shut the office door here. Got all these books. So my husband just came in, and I didn't want there to be any distracting noise from the other room, and I didn't want to distract him either. So anyway, going back to then this building encounters scenario, which I wish I would have written down what the page number was. Of course, I can't find it. Yeah, here we go. So for anybody who wants to know, this is in the Dungeon Master's Guide, kind of starting on page 81. Well, definitely starting on page 81. So you've got combat encounters, and the bit that I've been reading from is actually on the following page, where it has this chart. And it talks about how to do this. So I may need to do some other work later, because what it's telling me to do is add up the XP of the, I believe, total of the monster's XP. So I'm going to have to do that. And actually, I already know that the bandits are 25. The cultist was 25. And I already forgot the cult fanatic. The cult fanatic was 450, which is a lot. So at 25, I'd have 75, 100, or 125 for the cultists and the bandits, depending on whether I have 3 players or 4 players or 5 players. For the cult fanatic, it's if I have 2 of them, that's 900 XP. Ouch. Those guys are going to be tough. So then it says modify the total XP for multiple monsters. If the encounter includes more than one monster, apply a multiplier to the monster's total XP. The more monsters there are, the more attack rolls you're making against the characters in a given round, and the more dangerous the encounter becomes. To correctly gauge an encounter's difficulty, multiply the total XP of all the monsters in the encounter by the value given in the encounter's multiplier table. So I've got 3 to 6, and so it's telling me to multiply by 2. But I actually I have I'm thinking about 8, like 5 cultists, 3 bandits, 3, 5, and 2. I might actually need to, yeah, that's fine. Anyway, so I'm thinking that makes 8, 10 total, which is a multiplier of 2.5. So I'm not sure what the point of that is, though. So if the encounter includes 4 monsters worth a total of 500 XP, you would multiply it by 2 for an adjusted value of 1000 XP. This is not what they're worth in terms of XP. The adjusted value's purpose is to help you accurately assess the encounter's difficulty. Okay. So I'm still not entirely getting it. I know I felt like I understood this when I did this before. So then we're going to compare the monster's adjusted XP value to the party's XP thresholds. The closest threshold that is lower than the adjusted XP value of the monsters determines the encounter's difficulty. So this is a really difficult encounter, I think. So we've got let's call this, yeah, I can see I'm gonna have to do the math later because this has got to be boring. So shoot, okay. I wish. I see that I have 2 viewers, and I really wish that I could see the chat so that I could see what you guys have to offer by way of insight and information. And so I'm going to hop real quick to the Facebook page because I know there's been some comments there and see what people have said and if there's something they need. So Sam says he can't join because he's heading home, which is fine. And that's actually all I've got. Nothing else has anything to do with this hangout. So that's too bad. I could really use some more folks here, but that's okay. Nate says he's soon to be here. So obviously there's going to need to be a lot of editing. And darn it, I wish I knew how to. So if anybody knows how to set this up so that you can actually see the chat as it's happening, do I have to do that using XSplit and doing this, the Hangout through XSplit with the encoder on the live stream on YouTube as opposed to the one that creates the Google Hangout? Does anybody know? Because I would really like to find that out. So if you're in the Absolute Tabletop group and you have a chance later to, and you know how to do that, if you would maybe message me or something, I'd really appreciate it. And otherwise, I'll be looking into that some more this weekend because I am feeling very much like I wish I could see that, and I don't know how to do that. So let's see. Yeah, it doesn't look like I can go back here. So anyhow, I don't know. Nate says he's going to be here soon, so Yeah. So how do you build encounters? I'd love to hear your thoughts again. I'd really love to get maybe a panel going if anybody's interested in doing a panel on this, how to actually do this as a beginning GM. That would be really great. Private message me or let me know in the comments and I'll try to hook up with you because I do really want to learn how to do this. And going back to the opening scenario, of course, I'm very, very interested in how to make that work. I'm sure that there's something to do with con saves. I'm not sure. How do I decide what the difficulty level is? How do I adjust? I guess I feel like maybe people are sleeping would be rolling at disadvantage, and if there happens to be anybody awake, maybe they'd be rolling at an advantage. I suppose there's a potential that somebody could be outside and kind of see these people approaching too. And so I'm not sure how to handle that. I also have a couple ideas about how to, I have some ideas about giving the players themselves some information so that they may have some insight as to what has happened and why. But we'll see what they come up with for their scenarios. So my hope is to get this interest post up maybe tonight, but I feel like there's a lot of work still to be done on this, and I do feel like there's just a lot of missing information that I have not studied the Dungeon Master's Guide well enough to understand how to do. So Nate should be hopping in soon, and hopefully he'll have some insight to share. So yeah, if there's anybody else out there who wants to hop in, again, the link is posted in the Absolute Tabletop Facebook group. I don't know where else I could post that link for people to see it. So yeah, learning curve on everything. always a learning curve. So I had really hoped to test out XSplit tonight, but I didn't really know what I was doing, so I decided to go with what I already knew. But as you can see, like, I have no clue how to set this up. Is it in the toolbox? No. So I know that they've been messing around with this, and they, being Google, have been, trying to, and or YouTube, I guess, more accurately, have been doing some things with this and trying to figure out what they are going to do. And they've been, we've been losing tools. We don't have Dice Stream anymore. Things come and go, and let's see. Yeah, I don't see anything that opens up a chat for this. So anyway, they've just been making a lot of changes. I know there's been a lot of frustration in the various groups I'm in with using Hangouts anymore at all. But it does seem it's just the simplest way. Like, it's so easy to, especially for live plays, just to go ahead and use it and have people be able to follow the link and jump in, and it tracks who's talking and who's talking when. And we use it for our videos all the time because, of course, Nate and I don't live in the same state. He's in Nevada, I'm in Washington, and we're luckily we're on the same time zone. But it's really helpful for us when we do our videos. So we just record them when we're doing videos together. We just do it through Hangouts. And when our group plays, we also use Hangouts. We don't do it through YouTube when we do that, though. And so it's a little bit different. The interface is a little bit different, but not that much. And so I really am bummed that I can't get into any kind of a chat here. And I thought there was supposed to be a way to do that. So, well, I'm just going to give Nate a few more minutes to show up. So, yeah, I am trying to figure out if there's a way to, yeah, so I see a live chat option. in the stream now, but I don't see. Oh, here's the live control room. People are probably like, hey, you need to do this, you need to do this, and I'm not able to see. Oh, okay, broadcast alert. Well, that didn't help. It didn't help at all. I was hoping this live control room thing would answer my question to myself, but no. So, all right, well, kind of feel like this was an epic fail just because I'm so lost without being able to see what people might be commenting. So anyway, I may give this another try before this thing, before this half shot actually takes place. I may give this another go and see if we can't get some people in here joining in, and I may just record this when Nate hops on and kind of start over. So for now, I am going to close out the broadcast. For the 2 viewers who have been watching, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope we can hook up elsewhere so that I can get any insight you might have. So thank you so much for bearing with me. I'm sure this has been less than entertaining, but thanks a lot, and I'll catch you later. Bye.